I would like first to express all my gratitude to the organizers, and especially to you, David, for inviting me. I'm absolutely thrilled to be visiting for the first time Tallahassee in the University of South Florida. So now next time when I watch on television the Seminoles, as they are called, I can provide some element of context if I see them perform the rituals of this religion they call football here. So from July 28 to July 30 this past summer, an international conference was organized in Dakar by the Minister of Culture and the Director of National Heritage, Amadi Bokoum. They had invited curators, artists, and intellectuals in general for a 2-day workshop on the forthcoming inauguration and opening of the Museum of Black Civilizations, the Musée des Civilisations Noires. The goal of the meeting was to brainstorm on the very mission and the content of that museum now that the building has been delivered by China. Actually, right now, we are in a situation where Dakar was in 1966 when Senghor was supervising all these buildings, Théâtre National, Daniel Sorano, etc. Thanks to Chinese cooperation, we are renewing the infrastructure, the cultural infrastructure of Dakar. Now, when the inauguration of the museum by the current president of Senegal, Macky Sall, happens later this year, the event will probably be the best way to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Festival Mondial des Arts Nègres of 1966, but also, and this is my point here, but also the 60th anniversary of the Congrès des Artistes et Écrivains Noirs, the International Congress of Black Writers and Artists, which took place at the Sorbonne in 1956. Because the Musée des Civilisations Noires and the festival were great projects of Léopold Sédar Senghor, and their genesis is to be traced back to that Congress of 1956. So my first point is to present the 1966 Fesman, Festival Mondial des Arts Nègres, as born from the 1956 Congress. So that's my first point. When I say that the 1966 Fesman is the continuation of the 1956 Congrès des Artistes et Écrivains Noirs, I am certainly aware, as we are all here, that it is actually the Congress that followed, which took place in Rome 3 years later, that formulated explicitly the recommendation that a festival be organized at the time of their next meeting. So let me recall first the wording of that recommendation before I come back to 1956 as the event that intellectually gave birth to Fesman. So that recommendation says that the Congress shall institute as an essential aspect of its activities a festival to be celebrated during its meeting. It insists that singing, drumming, and dance occupy an important place in addition to readings of plays and poetry. One main feature, it is said in that same recommendation, shall be, I quote, an excellent art exhibition organized by African and African-descended people. End of quote. It is demanded, in addition, that the different governments give support to the festival and help in particular with the exhibition, while the inviting country will be responsible for putting together and showing the pieces of that exhibit. And the final words of the recommendation declare, it must be clearly understood that showing visual arts and active arts, art plastique et art d'action is the original French, is crucial in order to demonstrate the vitality and the excellence of African culture. So those are the terms in which the recommendation was worded. I want to emphasize here the concept of vitality and the fact that there is indeed an insistence on celebrating creativity in that festival rather than creations. In other words, if, as Senghor will declare, such a festival is an illustration of negritude, it must be understood that it is that of a negritude to be invented, a negritude to come, rather than negritude as heritage. And that particular perspective, which is different from a posture of defense and illustration of an heritage, is precisely what emerged forcefully during the 1956 Congress, and we can see how the two lectures given by Aimé Césaire, one in 1956 entitled Culture et Colonisation, the other being his 1966 address in Dakar on African art, respond to each other. So my point is that the intellectual significance of the 1966 come from that 1956. And we have to remember that 1956 is also the year when Senghor published his Esthétique Négro-Africaine in the journal Diogène, and this was the second major essay he wrote on African art after his 1939 Ce que l'homme noir apporte. So what did Césaire say in 1956 in his lecture on culture and colonization? Very briefly. First point, that liberation from colonialism is in its primordial sense a cultural gesture. It is about culture, primarily, in a primal, elemental way. And Césaire emphasized, like Senghor also did, the historical importance of the Bandung Conference by saying that Bandung was all about culture. Senghor has famously said that the most important event of the 20th century was the Conference of Bandung. The same way that the most important event of the 19th century was the publication of the Manifesto of the Communism. Of course, Senghor lived through 2 world wars. He was himself a prisoner of war, so he knew the importance of World War II. The reason why he still considered Bandung to be the most important event of the 20th century is that for him, somehow the 2 world wars were just continuation of the 19th century. It was really the nationalism of Europe in the 19th century that was continued in those 2 wars, while the Conference of Bandung was the one single event that just declared in simple terms that no society, no culture has any right to colonize another one. So for him, something